Renaissance literature. My name is Fouzi Slisli. I will be talking to you today about the Shakespearean sonnet. As we have mentioned already, there is two types of sonnets that appeared during the Renaissance. One is the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, and it is its main characteristics is that it has two segments. First segment of 8 lines in which a problem is posed, and then a second segment of 6 lines in which the problem is resolved. And then there appeared in England what became known as the Shakespearean sonnet, Shakespeare's sonnet. And in contrast to the Petrarchan sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet has 4 segments. It has 3 segments of 4 lines. They're called quatrains. 4 lines, 4 lines, and 4 lines. That's 12. And then there is a final segment of 2 lines called the couplet, in which the problem is resolved. So I will start by reading the poem, and then I will go into an explanation of the different segments. This is Sonnet 55, Shakespeare's Sonnet 55. Not marble, nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme. Not marble, nor gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme. But you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone, besmeared with sluttish time. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. 'Gainst death and all oblivious enmity shall you pace forth your praise, shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity, that wear this world out to the ending doom. So till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. Essentially, what Shakespeare says here, and it's clearly a love poem because all sonnets are love poems. He's telling his love that he is going to write a poem about her that will be so strong, so powerful, that it will outlive marble statues and gilded monuments, and will stand the test of time and wars and posterity, and she will live eternally in his poem. So in the first quatrain, which opens with the famous line, "Not marble nor the gilded monuments," the speaker here in Shakespeare's Sonnet 55 begins by proclaiming that his poem is more powerful than marble or gilded monuments. Princes have nothing on poets when it comes to enshrining truth. No marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, this powerful poem, this powerful sonnet. The poet speaker has faith that his sonnet will outlast any stone statue that is besmeared with sluttish time. So even marble statues and gilded monuments built by princes and kings, they get affected by the passage of time, and they get besmeared, right? Besmeared by time and by age. But his rhyme, his poem, will outlast and outlive all of them and remain for eternity. Marble and stone monuments become mere obscene gestures when compared to the written monuments that contain a true poet's attributes to truth and beauty. The poet knows that truth is soul-inspired, and therefore it is eternal. So we notice here the concept of the idea that developed in the Renaissance of poems as monuments. The poem itself, a poem, it's made up of words that are created by a poet, but those poems represent monuments that are more powerful than marble and gilded monuments built by princes. In the second quatrain, when wasteful war shall statues overturn, when wasteful wars that lay everything to waste, when these wars shall statues overturn, shall overturn statues. Notice also how Shakespeare moves the order of the words in the sentence. Usually we would say, when wasteful war shall overturn statues. That's the natural order. But Shakespeare changes the order of the words, so it becomes, when wasteful war shall statues overturn. So in the second quatrain, the speaker insists that nothing can erase the living record of your memory, which I am enshrining in this poem. The poem's memory is permanent, even though wasteful war might overturn statues and broils root out the work of masonry. The poem is ethereal, and once written, it remains a permanent record written on memory. The living record includes more than just parchment and ink. It's not just paper and ink. It includes the power of thought that is born in each mind. The true seer poet, the true poet, creates that living record in his poems to remind others that truth is indelible. It cannot be erased. It is indelible, it is beautiful and eternal, and cannot be waylaid, even when wasteful war shall statues overturn and broils root out the work of masonry. The third quatrain, which says, gainst death and all oblivious enmity, against death, which means against death, and all oblivious enmity. The poem containing truth and beauty is immortal. It is against death. No enemy can ever succeed against that sole truth, as the speaker avers. Your praise shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. The poet-speaker, essentially, as the reader has experienced many times before in Shakespeare's sonnets, has the utmost confidence. So the speaker in the poem is overconfident, has the utmost confidence that his poem will be enjoying widespread fame, and that all future generations of readers are what he calls the eyes of all posterity. He's confident that the eyes of all posterity will be reading and studying this poem. The speaker's faith in his own talent is deep and abiding, and he is certain they will continue to remain even in the eyes of all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. The final part of the poem is a couplet. These are the two last lines where the poet and the speaker of the poem essentially concludes the poem. And this is the couplet beginning with, so till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. The speaker caps his claims by asserting, he ends basically his claim by asserting that in the accounting of the poem, the poetic truth and beauty will exist forever and remain embedded in the vision of future readers. The poem basically, to conclude, the poem basically aims to immortalize the subject meaning his love. The poet aims, and the poem aims to immortalize the subject in verse, in poetry. The poem is meant to impress the subject with the poet's intent, with his talent. The poem shall survive longer than any gold-plated statue, the gilded monuments, that might be erected to a prince or a king, etc. The subject of the poem, probably some winsome beauty that the poet really, really wants, will be portrayed in the poem for all time, etc. Further, the ending basically says that she will be immortalized in the poem until the day of judgment. And she rises from her grave to face the said judgment. So basically that she will be immortalized in his poem until the end of days. And then on the day of judgment, this is according to, you know, the Western Christian Judeo concept of day of judgment, she will arise and face the day of judgment. Let's read sonnet number 73. That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those buffs which shake against the cold, bare ruined cores where laid the sweet birds sung. In me thou seest the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away death's second self that seals up in all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceived, which makes thus thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. Basically, in this poem, Shakespeare is perhaps the most well-known poet of all times. Western literature managed to impose itself and managed to glorify Shakespeare to a point that people assume that Shakespeare is the best poet of all times, but I think this is relative. But he was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon in England, and he died at the age of 52. Before he died at 52, he had written a great number of comedies, tragedies, plays, and sonnets. Shakespeare's 73rd sonnet consists of 14 lines, 3 quatrains, and a couplet. And it follows in iambic pentameter form, like all sonnets. The first line of the sonnet is sometimes referenced as the title, so they don't have titles, these sonnets, because if you remember, we said that sonnets were written, handwritten and circulated just among friends. And when printing was invented, then they start printing them in books and publishing them. But when it came to printing them, the poets weren't there anymore. Some of the poets were dead. So the editors, the publishers, had to organize these poems in manuscripts, handwritten poems in manuscripts. They had to organize them, give them titles, provide introductions, and most of the time they just took the first line of the poem and used it as a title. It reads, "The time of year thou mayst in me behold, the time of year thou mayst in me behold." The poet paints a picture in each quatrain of the sonnet, conveying his anxieties, his fears of the impending harshness of old age. He's aging. He wants the reader to understand the value of life and love. He does this by illustrating that life is limited by time. In the first section of the sonnet, the poet draws an allusion between an external image and an internal state of mind. There is the external image of the seasons passing by, that time of year that mayst in me behold, that time of the year when you come and live inside me. So there's a parallel, an image of the external world where the seasons pass, and then the internal feeling that accompanies that season. The poet anticipates the impending chill and abandonment that comes with old age. The first four lines read, "That time of year that mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those buffs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sung. So in this first quatrain, the imagery of a harsh autumn. This is clearly the autumn. It's an autumn day, it's harsh, it's made more tactile by the use of pauses in the second line. Each pause helps to create the imagery of leaves being blown away, one by one, and feeling the chill of the cold of late autumn wind, when the autumn starts becoming winter and the autumn becomes colder. The choice of words, bare ruined choirs, is a reference to the remains of a church that has been stripped of its roof, exposing it to the elements and left to decay. It seems as if the poet is saying, see this place, this is how I am feeling, old, cold, and abandoned. I am in a state of ruin, and I am barely hanging on. The knowledge that joy once existed in this place that now is destroyed, doesn't have a roof. The idea that once there was life here, there was a roof, there was, people living in it. The knowledge that joy once existed in this place, as alluded to by the bird's sweet song, sets the emotional tone, one of sympathetic pity. Fading youth is represented by twilight in the second section of the sonnet. In me thou seest the twilight of such a day as after sunset fadeth in the west. The denotation of twilight, as referenced in the Franklin Dictionary, is the light from the sky between sunset and full night. It's that light between the sunset and nightfall, right? That's the twilight. Here, a visual sense of darkness approaching with the connotation that the end is near is clearly illustrated. Which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. The twilight is rapidly taken away by the black night, figuratively expressed as death's second self. So darkness, blackness of the night is like death's second self. Sleep is often portrayed as a second self of death or death's brother. In the third quatrain of the sonnet, the poet makes it clear by using a different metaphor that his death will be permanent. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie as the deathbed whereon it must expire. He uses this simile to imply that the ashes of his youth equate to death. Consumed with that which it was nourished by, the connotation simply stated, life lived is death. The type of sonnets, rhyme schemes that are used in these two poems are basically A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, J, J. This is the Shakespearean rhyme scheme, as opposed to the Petrarchan rhyme scheme, which goes A, B, B, A, B, B, A in the first octave, and then in the sestet, the last 6 lines, the Petrarchan rhyme scheme is C, D, E, C, D, E. The Spenserian poem or the Spenserian rhyme follows a different rhyme scheme, which usually runs as A, B, A, B, B, C, B, C, C, D, C, D, and E, E in the end. The division of the Shakespearean sonnet has 3 quatrains. The quatrain is 4 lines, so that gives you 12 lines, and then a couplet, that's 2 lines, so it gives you a total of 14 lines. The final 2 lines of the poet of the sonnet says, this thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love well, which thou must leave ere long. These last 2 lines remind basically say that I am not going to be around much longer. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love well, which thou must leave ere long. Basically, the true message of this sonnet is clearly written in the first line of each quatrain. Shakespeare is like shouting, "Look at me, I am cold, abandoned, and separated. See me, my mortal end is near, I am going to die. See me and know your love for me is strengthened. I beg you to understand." And basically, these two sonnets give us an idea about most of Shakespeare's sonnets are love sonnets. They are addressed to somebody he loves, who we never know who it is. There is no names, there is no, it's never stated who this person is. But it's a love that's expressed in different ways in each sonnet, and each sonnet presents a situation that illustrates this love in relation to nature, in relation to life, in relation to the passage of time, and so on and so forth. I hope you enjoyed these two poems, and I look forward to seeing you in our future lectures. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa ta'ala wa barakatuh. الأميرة الثانية.